everyone. It's Rhonda Nelson. I just wanted to chat with you for a little bit this morning about something that I love doing. And first of all, full disclaimer, I don't have a brick and mortar. I just have I just have a virtual practice. So I don't have a brick and mortar, but for those of you that do, here is a super cool tip that you can use while you're just educating your patients, but you're not doing any selling. Because what happens is when a patient comes in, what's the first thing that they do? They see your front desk counter, or if you're a solo practitioner and you have a single room that you're in, and you're just, you bring them in, you sit them down, and maybe you have a little desk or a counter or something like that. I love, love, love using product displays. I love using them. But everybody gets all funky about what do I put and how do I do it and what do I say? So I'm going to walk you through that process today. So here's what you do. The first thing is, I always like to think about things in the manner of like a theme. So I pick a theme for the week. So my theme this week might be, let's just say, blood sugar. We'll just call that. So my theme this week might be blood sugar. That means that with every patient that I see, I'm going to be talking about blood sugar. I'm going to talk about the importance of eating breakfast, the importance of protein and fiber for stabilizing that glucose release into the bloodstream, fiber-containing foods. I'm going to talk about refined foods. I'm going to talk about sugar cravings. I might even talk about, like waking up at night, that tossing and turning, awake, asleep, all night long. That's often blood sugar. So I'm going to talk about that kind of thing, like sleep. Anything that I can think of during that, every patient that I see or talk to in the week, I'm going to be talking about blood sugar. And so anything related to blood sugar. Now, what I'm going to do then is, here's the magic. On my front desk counter, I'm going to have 2 or 3 products or things that it doesn't have to be a product. It could be sea salt. It could be, I guess that's a product, but it could be anything. An exercise band if your niche is athletes. But something that supports what it is that you're talking with your patients about that week. And so on the front counter, as it has to do with blood sugar, I love standard process and MediHerbs, so I'm going to use things like Gymnema and Diaplex. I'm going to maybe put those 2, sit them on the counter. I might have a little dish out where I have some of them in the dish so that the patients can take them for free. And then I put them on the counter, and those become that's the display that I'm using for the week to reinforce the education that I'm doing with the patient. Does that make sense? So when we have this kind of like dual conversation going, so I'm actually having that conversation with them in real time, and then they're able to see it on the counter when they leave, the display on the counter, that kind of reinforces it again to them. And then the third way that you can kind of leverage that is with an email. Those weekly emails, and all of you should be sending out those weekly emails. Send out that email that says, hey, just want to give you a heads up. Here's what's going on in our office. Or did you know, it could be informational, value-driven email. It could be something like, did you know that dysregulated blood sugar is commonly associated with adrenal stress. So if you're under chronic stress, you may have some altered blood sugar. Are these any symptoms that you might be experiencing? So those symptoms, then you start to list those out, and you just have a very gentle conversation with them in an email. And if you're having difficulty with your blood sugar, be sure you let us know. But those are the ways that you can actually start to have conversations with people without, quote, selling to them. You're not trying to come in and say, well, you have this problem and I can solve this problem. You absolutely can. But I think there's a much easier way to go about that, and that is just through general education. So using product displays on your countertop is an absolute home run. It does require a little bit of forethought, though. Like, you have to kind of plan ahead. So that's why I love talking about like a content calendar. So with a content calendar, you've got every week you have a different topic or theme that you want to talk about. You may want to talk about one thing for a month, which is great. I think that's awesome. But at least think about it in chunks of time, and think about what kinds of value you can provide in a chunk of time, whether that's a week or 2 weeks, and then make your product display line up with whatever it is that you're talking about. And then the next week, pick a different theme. And the next week, pick a different theme. And you could even recycle them, like every 3-4 months. Come back and talk about the same thing all over again, because you're going to have new patients that are going to need different types of education. And all of that's like super important. So I love using product displays. So reinforce your product display with an email, reinforce it with your conversations that you're having, and then have those products on your counter. And also make sure your staff is really educated about them. I should probably talk about that. Making sure that your staff knows what they're for and how to use them is absolutely essential, because patients are going to have questions. No doubt about that. They're going to have questions. They're going to want to know, well, how do I take this? And do I need to take it with food, or does it need to be taken on an empty stomach? Or, how is it that I do this? Is there any research? Do you have a brochure? Your staff needs to know all of that. They can't be running to you all the time saying, hey, doc, what do I do about this? And what about this? No. Let's cut that off at the pass. Like, educate that front desk person or the person who's answering the phone so they know what to say and they know how to educate the patients. In that regard, that helps your front desk person, your team member, be much more of an advocate for you, but it also builds credibility between the patient and that front desk person. So, hi, Christy. It builds credibility between you or the patient and that front desk person. So that's really important, because they're the ones that the patients are interacting with anyway. So what we want to make sure that we build credibility and that the patients believe that the person behind the desk actually knows what they're talking about more than, or at least as much as you do. So there you go. That's all I got for you today. Just use those product displays, get a content calendar, create your content calendar. Just even if you don't do anything too wild and crazy, like in the Business Coaching Collaborative, we're talking about content calendars right now. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, just get a blank calendar, go to Staples or Office Depot or somewhere, get a blank calendar, and start by just writing down a theme that you want to talk about every week. Just pick something. It's not rocket science. Just pick something, write it down, say, this is what I'm going to talk about this week. And then think, okay, what are 2 or 3 things that I could passively recommend or passively sell at my front counter that have to do with this theme or topic? And then educate your staff, make sure that they know what they're talking about and what this is for and why, where the boundaries are. In other words, if there are things that you need to talk about a little bit more in detail with the patient that, i.e. your front staff isn't really qualified to do. Or, if there's something like I wouldn't do myrrh, or I wouldn't do any kind of detox, maybe a hardcore, something that's a little bit more involved, like stealth pathogen work. I probably wouldn't do that as a, weekly theme as far as selling it, because that's more practitioner driven. You're going to recommend that. But just the general stuff, oh my gosh, it's just so easy to do. The wellness packs are another one. So if you have any kind of a wellness pack, you could be talking about adrenal health. You could talk about, just have that wellness pack out there. Look, it's like 2 packs a day. Easy, easy, easy. The patients get benefit. You're benefiting. They trust you. They've built relationship with your front desk. I'm telling you, it's a win all the way around. So I love doing product displays. So it's one of my best tools for marketing in a non-salesy, non-pressure, where you're really providing value and you're helping the patient have the resources that they need to be able to get better, feel better, and believe that you are their superstar, because you are. That's what you are. All right, you guys, have a great week. I'll be back on a little later this week, and I got a few more things to share with you about safe ways to use social media. I talked about that a little bit last week, but safe ways to use social media, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. So I'm going to be talking about how you can do it, even though we have this kind of love-hate relationship, but we can do it. Hi, Joanne. There is a way to do it. You can do it, but this is one of the things. If you want to attract your people, you've got to be out there. You've got to be visible. And so the 3 key places are going to be YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You don't have to do all 3. You can do one if you want, whichever one you want. But there are ways to do it safely so that you can still connect and you don't compromise your values too much. So anyway, have a great week, you guys. I'm so glad you jumped on with me. Take care. Let me know if you need anything. You can go to rondanelson.com, all kinds of good information there. And then tomorrow, I've got a brand new podcast coming out, so be sure you watch for that. You guys should all get an email. If you're not on my email list, be sure that you do. You can go to rondanelson.com and sign up. All right, you guys, thanks. Talk to you later. See you later. Bye.